And welcome into the Computer America Show. We are about to start the show proper here in about half a minute. So all of you joining us for our pre-show kind of deal, just know that today in the entire show, I know it's usually 1 hour, and now we are 1 hour. So Mike Cermak will be joining us for the entire show today as we get into tech stories, tech news, as well as even some, maybe even a tip to how to speed up your internet connection.
Your show will go live
So
in 5
stay
seconds.
tuned. Here we go with
4,
Computer America.
3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at computeramerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. It is the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. I am your host, kind of sitting in for Craig while he is out sick still. I know, quite a while. But we're going to have a great show. And I'm your host, Ben. And glad that all of you are joining us, of course. And before we get into our first hour guest, which is, of course, Mike Cermak, as longtime listeners of the show, you know who he is, and you know that every first Wednesday of the month, he is here like clockwork, unless he's not, and then he's not here. But he is here today, indeed. And we have a lot to talk about with him, including, of course, some tech news that's been happening, as well as maybe a trick to how to get your internet connection going faster. And I promise it's not just buy a better router. Doesn't hurt, but that's not going to be the trick. And then, of course, we're going to jump into the entire Google, kind of launch event that happened yesterday. We barely got to touch on the Pixel line of phones, and we can talk about the specs and how they compare with some of the other, similar price phones, because there's always been that iPhone Samsung kind of rivalry. And it looks like Google is trying to hit the same price point with similar spec phones. So should be very, very interesting. But before we get into that, please remember to check us out at computeramerica.com, where we will include today all the links and everything you need to know about today's show over in the show notes. And this is linked to techguide.org. This is links to the stories that we cover. This is links to anything. And of course, we'll also include the topics that we talk about. So if you want to, either you want to read further, or you want to remember what we talked about, or you didn't catch something, it's going to be available over at computeramerica.com. Should be right there on the homepage. And it should be for the next few days. Also remember that we have a social media winner of the week coming up on Friday from our friends over at Logitech. We are still giving away the Keys to Go, which is a super, super thin, I want to say the majority of the keyboard is about I'd say about 0.10 or, well, maybe 0.1, no, 0.10 inches thick. It is super, super thick, very, very soft, and a great prize. Glad that we're giving it away. And and again, the product is called Keys to Go if you want to give it a check out. And if you want a chance to win that, please head on over to Facebook, Google+, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you can find Computer America. Subscribe, follow, what have you, and you are entered to win. Just that easy. And we will let you know through that medium. And so we have the contest. We have, of course, if you are joining us now, then you, of course, have the new showtime as well. And the new showtime is, of course, 4 to 5 Eastern. Hopefully all of you are adjusting nicely to the new hour. I would say new hours, but the new hour, which is what we are on. And so far we're having a lot of success with it. So I think for at least the next couple of weeks, we will be sticking with it. And so without anything else to tell all of you, I think we're just going to jump right into it, because he is waiting so patiently in the wings. And that is today's guest. Again, his name is Mike Cermak, longtime correspondent of the show and owner and operator of techguide.org. And of course, techguide.org being, a really, really good place to do all things tech. If you have a problem, if you want to share what you do with your computer, or if you just want to help others out, go check out techguide.org. It's completely It's completely free for the end user. It's donations and supported by ads, and just a great way to maybe figure something out that you can't quite put a finger on. So with that said, Mike Cermak, as I said, longtime correspondent, welcome back onto the show.
Hey, thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I am doing well indeed. Other than the fact that I forgot to update the live video feed, but other than that, we are doing really, really well. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Always glad to be here.
Right. So, and I've, you, of course, every time you come on the show, you always come on with a couple different topics, and, you picked quite a few out. So I think the way that we're going to break this one up is we're going to go over, kind of the news that caught your eye. And then later in the show, we are going to go over everything Google, because the Google thing, very, very important. Whenever something, whenever a company that big launches something, that's similar to what's already in the market, it's obviously going to catch an eye. So, but I think where we're going to start off for everyone is HP. And HP has been catching a lot of flack for this. They don't seem to be backing down. They're just kind of shrugging their shoulders and saying, yeah, we did it. We got caught. We're not going to change. So,
yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, right. So tell us about what HP did and why people are upset.
Yeah, so what happened is, as many people know, with all printers, not just HP inkjets, but with any inkjet, the ink is crazy expensive. And so a lot of people go out and buy third-party, unofficial ink to use in their printer just to save money, because the brand name genuine HP ink or genuine whatever brand ink is just so expensive. And so what happened is, here on September 13th, people went to use their printer with the ink cartridges that were in it, and if it wasn't an official ink cartridge, HP genuine ink cartridge, it wouldn't print.
Oh man!
There was a feature. I'm doing air quotes for those not watching video. There was a feature in one of the updates to the printer that, beginning September 13th, that these printers, these OfficeJet inkjets, wouldn't allow them to use third-party ink anymore. Even if it was already installed, even if you'd been printing on it for weeks, now all of a sudden it comes up and it'll tell you to replace the ink cartridge to resume printing.
Yeah, it's and like that was the worst part, was that this whole thing started, at least for a lot of people, like it wasn't just a certain their ink is 5 years old and it just wouldn't take it anymore. I mean, like they were actively printing on it on Tuesday. The update went out Wednesday, and then they tried Thursday, and they said your ink is corrupted. Your ink is.
And what's even worse about that, Ben, is that it's not that the update came out the day before or something. Some of these printers, the firmware had been in there for months, and HP had arbitrarily decided internally that September 13th will be the day where these printers will stop accepting this ink. So even if you hadn't updated your printer firmware or anything, it was already coded in there that September 13th it would stop working, and no one knew it but HP. There was no announcement about this. There was no warning, make sure you use up your fake. No warning, make sure you don't buy any more of these third-party cartridges, on September 12th. Nothing. No one knew this was going to happen except for HP. And that is the worst thing about this, is just how not transparent. I mean, it's kind of a gray area as to whether or not they should do this to begin with. But even if you think it's perfectly within their rights and that it's okay and that they're on the right side to do it, the way they did it was just terrible.
Yeah, it's not going to win them any awards for.
Well, it might win some awards.
Well, right. Well, not the awards that you want to win, but you're right. I mean, for the end user, they were caught completely off guard. I mean, I remember like the day it happened, like before the story broke. Like I'm sure sites like yours and many other sites out there, they were flooded with hey, I have a problem with my printer. I keep trying to clean the nozzle. I keep doing this, that, and the other, and it keeps broken. And like people had to piece it together. Like there was no notice. It was just kind of the group all came together and said, oh, this is only happening.
This is a little bit too much of a coincidence that everyone with an OfficeJet ink that has third-party ink in it is suddenly not working. Yeah.
Right. So, and of course, just getting into a little bit, and yes, this is going to be an opinion piece. This is not, kind of reflective of anything else. But you, Mr. Mike Cermak.
Yes.
How do you feel about the, because obviously it's long been known that the printer the printer manufacturers, they sell the printer at cost or at a little bit of a loss to
Sure.
compete with everyone else, and then they make their money up with ink cartridges. Like that's why the pain point is so big.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And that's why printers are so darn cheap. I mean, it's kind of crazy that you can go out there and buy a $100, multi-function printer that will print, scan, copy, and fax, and the amount of technology that's in there is obviously worth much more than $100. So you're exactly right. They make their money on the ink, and that's no secret to anyone. So I have mixed feelings about this. Certainly, I first of all say I love HP. I've got several HPs here in my office, but I just don't like the way they went about this. Now, it's one thing if they were to decide you can only use genuine HP ink. They called it out. I'll have to see if I can find the phrasing here. They said that it's a feature because they are dedicated to the best printing experience, and that they have updated the cartridge authentication procedure in order to ensure the best consumer experience and protect them from counterfeit and third-party ink that do not contain original HP security,
that
and that infringe on our IP. And the part on the end there, as far as if they can do it legally, I think is key, that these cartridges probably do infringe on their intellectual property and go against their patents for third parties to make them. That could be the case. I'm no patent attorney.
I mean,
Um,
of course, replace the term ink with with coffee, and you go back to the whole Keurig.
Keurig, yeah. Do
Uh,
they have the right to do it? I think they do. I'm not an attorney, but I think they do. Is there actually a consumer protection happening here? That's hard to say. I don't think that the market of counterfeit ink is as big as what they might think it is. I think that there is a big market for third-party ink, but I think most consumers know they're getting third-party ink. I don't think it's necessarily counterfeit in most cases. I'm sure there is some, but I don't know. I'm not impressed by the argument, but I think it's certainly within their rights to do it. But again, my biggest problem with it is just the way they went about doing it. They should have made an announcement 6 months ago saying that, because the problem of counterfeit ink, and I think that it is true that the counterfeit ink is lower quality than the real thing.
oh yeah,
Certainly, I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure Craig has, I don't know if you've ever refilled an ink cartridge. Back in the day, that was a pretty popular thing, and they would leak, and it was a hassle. I mean, I know people who did it and loved it and never had a problem, but that wasn't me. And so I kind of get that side of it. And certainly I can understand that they only warrant, the warranty only extends as far as you use the genuine products. But I have a hard time.
I remember having Epson on the actually on the show here, and it was just a couple months ago. And we actually brought this point up, like it wasn't obviously this is with HP and not Epson. Don't want to get too confused, but I actually asked the rep from Epson, saying the price of printer ink is it's a pain point for a lot of people for owning printers and things like this, and that's why they go with third-party ink. We actually had them on talking about their Eco Tank line. You only have to fill it like once every 2 years, and larger ink. And I kind of asked him, is this Epson's response to the fact that people buy third-party ink? And he's like, the printer compared to other similar printers costs about $100 more upfront. But with the EcoTank, and they're hoping that of course, having to fill it once every 2 years, they're hoping that because they charge more upfront, they can kind of sell the ink more at cost.
Sure.
So it's something that they know, but I feel like HP is going the same route that Keurig did, and it bit Keurig in the butt, which was of course trying to digital rights manage their way out of a secondary market that showed that people don't like paying a lot for coffee or ink.
Right. Well, and the thing about it is that the legitimacy of actually pretending that it's to protect the consumer and not protect the manufacturer is just kind of silly. In both Keurig's case and in HP's case, it's obviously it's going to be more of a benefit to the company than it is to the consumer. I think that's clearly the reason they're doing this, and to pretend otherwise is just kind of tongue in cheek almost.
It sounds like something that came from corporate. They had a statistic come at them, and corporate said, well, shut this down, and the tech side said, well, we could do it, but people weren't going to like it, and then handed it off to the marketing team and said, here, spin this in a way that we can tell everyone. I mean,
and then someone forgot to do so, because the fact that they didn't announce it just baffles me. That's such a I mean, I don't know how they imagined that this would work out. Well, maybe people won't notice. Like, I
Well,
don't know how they thought this would work out.
right, and then of course, I mean, like I feel like they could have hidden it better. Like I don't know if this is, I feel like if they were truly trying to be an evil mastermind, then they could have done waves, where every week more and more printers would stop accepting ink. But they just did all one big master shutdown. It's like, oh, buy our ink, and there it goes. So yeah, that was a very interesting story, and one that showed that I think after all the hubbub, like after the initial hubbub went down, they didn't care. Like HP didn't say, "Oh, we hear your outcry and we're gonna roll this back," or
Right.
somewhere. They just kind of said, "Okay, here's the deal."
Yeah. Well, and they really didn't fess up to it until they were called out on it, until
Right.
people realized what was happening. And so as of right now, the only way to fix it, to be able to get back to using the ink cartridges you were using a couple of weeks ago, is to revert your firmware back on your printer, not back to something earlier in 2016, not back to something in 2015, but to 2014, because it's been that long that it's been in the firmware. So you can revert your firmware back to 2014, which is not something your average consumer is going to want to do or necessarily has the technical skills to do.
Right.
And HP has finally, kind of given up to the point where they said that they will release an optional update that consumers can download and install within the next couple of weeks. That will revert that part of the change, but they're not making any promise that they won't, change it again in the future. Which, and another problem with this whole thing that another person was pointing out is that it makes people less apt to install security updates. Because, I mean, security updates for a printer seem like a silly thing, when we talk about, updates for browsers and operating systems and so on. But really, it's not trivial. I mean, you're printing out things that may have your social security number on it or other confidential information. And certainly, as the printer is a computer, I mean, there's a computer in there. It's connected to your Wi-Fi network. It certainly, has the potential of being hacked like any other device. So security updates are not insignificant.
It connects directly to the network. It's just like hooking up a computer to a network and giving it full access. If your printer has full access to any computer in the network, then access through the printer, spoof some stuff, and bam, you have access to every computer in that network from the printer. It's not trivial. The security standpoint, I didn't even consider, but I also, but the update that they said that they may turn it off in the future. Same thing that you just said. If they've already updated the firmware and it broke it once, they're not going to update it a second time. And even if they make it an opt out instead of an opt in kind of thing, yeah, I mean, you and I know that as soon as you say, they have the options to turn it off, 95% of consumers out there, or whatever number I feel like making up right now, the majority of the users out there are not going to go in there and mess with the options. It's just,
well, and the other thing is that this optional update is going to come out in a couple of weeks, so it'll have been a month or two that you couldn't use these cartridges. People are just going to give up and go back to buying genuine ones, and not only for the convenience of the couple of months where they couldn't have used them, but then the fear that it's going to happen again, that they're going to install another update someday and not be able to use these cartridges.
I think, well, I mean, just as a consumer, advocate, I think the worst thing that could happen is that this works. That companies can get away with, I think, going out and kind of surreptitiously undermining other companies and really kind of the consumer's choice. Yep. And saying, well, buy us or it doesn't work. And that exclusivity, I not a huge fan of, but. Yep. I mean, I hate to
especially not to be upfront about it. If when I'm buying the printer, if it's like, all right, you're going to have this printer at this price point, but you have to buy our ink, as opposed to I'm going to buy this printer and use it with whatever cartridges I want for a year, and then all of a sudden one day I'm going to discover it doesn't work the way it had been for a year. You're going to remove a feature that I've been using without my knowledge or permission or advance warning. That's right. Just, and again, I want to hammer again just how awful it is to make people feel like they're getting an update for security and to have it be removing a feature like this for no, I think, genuine consumer protection. I think, it's,
right.
Then people, I mean, as it is now, I talk to people, and I'm sure you do as well, that are always nervous about installing updates for a variety of reasons. And to give them another reason to hesitate to install a security update is just terrible.
Yeah, it's definitely a sticky situation that I think HP is handling much like an elephant would with a sticky situation in that they run through it and then they're an elephant, so they can just walk right out of it. Uh, they're not really going to stop and kind of
Not a lot of grace and elegance in that either.
Right, yeah, they just kind of charged through it and said, well, okay, and they're just
We're HP. What are you going to do?
right, pretty much. So I mean, I think
and this is on a very specific line of HP printers, but I think we can all accept that this is just the first step.
oh yeah, for sure. If it happens with one branch, it's going to happen with the others. But I mean, we've had HP on the show. They do make a good product when
They do.
are trying to take features out of it. And I feel like this is like I don't want to knock HP's engineers. I don't want to knock HP's software developers. This feels like this is just painted all over with this is what corporate said to do. And here's what we had to do. Like it's not an inferior product. It's just, hey, it's corporate. What are you gonna
do? And again, I can completely understand many motivations of doing this, both from the consumer and especially from the company point of view. I think they're within their rights to do this, but my biggest criticism of it is just how they went about doing it. Just the fact that they, were kind of behind your back in doing it.
Definitely not good.
If all they had to do was make a press release that may have been picked up by a couple, computer geeks that said beginning September 13th, some products are no longer going to be able to use third-party or counterfeit cartridges. Like if they had just, just a heads up, but just the fact that they were so behind your back about it, that's what irritates me the most. And you're right, I love HP. They have great products. I'm going to continue to buy HP products. And I personally only use genuine cartridges just because I've had so many problems with the third-party ones.
Right.
But so it doesn't affect me in any way. I just don't like the way they handled it. So that's all.
Yeah, and I think that's good.
And they're not the first company to make a mistake in handling things, and I can forgive. But that's the disappointment in the story.
They will not be last because digital rights management and hardware and software. It's been happening all the time. I mean, companies as big as Microsoft, with their whole Xbox having to always be connected to the internet so that they could always verify that you were running legitimate software on your Xbox. I mean, companies have been stepping in DRM for the longest time, and it's only going to get worse. So I love talking about it. But moving from speaking of companies, kind of doing the wrong thing, how about one guy in what many consider the most isolated part of the world in terms of society?
Mm-hmm.
This one guy, I don't know what happened to him, and I don't think we'll ever know what truly happened to the network administrator that this happened to. But when you cross the North Koreans, I can't always promise it's going to be a good turnout. So Mike, you point out this one. It happened I want to say about 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone ever said North Korea has a bustling internet industry and their e-commerce is rivaling that of the U.S. Like no one ever said that North Korea in internet infrastructure was astounding. But I think after a mistake that I hope that you can get into, but after a mistake, I think we found out the true extent of what North Korea has really been doing with internet technology. And it's not awe-inspiring, I think.
Well, and you have to give them a little credit. They are a very small country compared to some others. But yeah, so what happened is there was a mistake someone made in the DNS of North Korea that allowed people to peer in, through the veil of North Korea and see what was going on the inside for a small period of time. And we were able to see all of the domain names that exist within North Korea.
Yeah.
And there were 28 of them.
Now, of course, to put that into context for a lot of people, let's see, when I first did the story, I had the number of domains registered to .coms and .orgs, and it was like almost a billion, right? It was like 600 million or something like that, 700 million.
Something like that. I believe that. I haven't looked it up, but I believe it.
I'll double check that, but yeah, 28. And so
I own more than 28 domain names. It didn't occur to me until this moment, but
you are larger than North Korea. Congratulations.
I like to think so in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you can put that at the top of every single one of them. It's now sporting more options than North Korea. That's definitely good. So, and just kind of going through some of the websites that were pinged back, they had like 28 sites, and a lot of them were clones. So like they had like clones of like Yahoo homepage, but with everything stripped and everything put back with North Korean propaganda.
Right.
They had like airline websites, like not a lot of variety. It was mostly just
Yeah, it was all pretty boring. I can imagine people don't spend time surfing the North Korean web as we do.
yeah.
There's a culinary website with recipes. There's a, like you said, a Yahoo MSN type, knockoff. There's, the Korean Tourism Board, the official government site that has news articles, and
Right.
yeah,
It was not impressive, and obviously, like most things in North Korea, whenever you see someone sitting at a computer, using a computer, saying how advanced we are, compare that with like South Korea, and South Koreans are some of the best video gamers in the world. They beat everyone. It is ridiculous how good they are at computers and just infrastructure, what have you. For North Korea to come around, it just shows the disparity between the two. I think anyone who's ever been to South Korea, or at least knows of South Korea and their infrastructure, I mean, like every single citizen has like gigabit internet service, like guaranteed. And for North Korea, it's dial-up all the way, and it's 28 websites. Don't go.
well, and why do you need more than dial-up? I mean, if you visited any of these websites,
Oh
they
no,
look like they were written in the 90s anyway. So
they all had the original Computer America front page on there. So it was wonderful. But no, it was a very interesting story, and I really do like the way that this came out. Was that, at least the way that I had heard, was there's just some guy out there, like you talk about nerds sometimes, and we talk about nerds. Like, it was a legit nerd that kind of broke this, where he says that he has computers set up to continuously ping different DNS for different countries, like the big, the overarching one. So for .ru for Russia, .de for Germany, and he had .lk or nk or whatever North Korea's was. And he just pings it all day long, and he waits for someone to mess up the DNS setting. And whenever they do it for Russia, he gets a ping back, and he gets to learn all the different websites registered to Russia or to Germany, he just likes looking through, what kind of websites are populating.
So the way and you know this, but for listeners, the way the internet works is when you go to type in a domain name like google.com or computeramerica.com, your computer goes out and talks to what's called a name server, which is like a phone book. It looks up and it says, all right, google.com is at this IP address, 123.456.0.1. And then your computer actually talks to the other computer through the IP address. The name is just to make things easy for us. And so these name servers, there's top level domain name servers that handle the overarching. It's the big phone book that
Right.
tells your computer where to look up these listings. And so there's this project that this guy was a member of and is a member of, I assume, that every 2 hours they go out and hit all of the main top level domain name servers and try to do what's called a zone transfer. Try to say, I want a copy of your records. And of course, North Korea has always rejected those. They don't allow zone transfers because they don't want other people to see their domains.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly as you described, one day around 10 o'clock at night, all of a sudden they started getting an answer to their request.
And they pinged it. They got 28 back, and that is opposed to like something like the US, who you get like a couple 100 million, and then you get 28. So I don't think anyone is ever shocked when it comes to North Korea about how I think underdeveloped they are in some areas. So it's just one of those things where the internet brings the world together, and then you have that one weird kid come in and he's like, okay, so 28 websites, that's good. Yeah.
Well, and one of the funniest comments I read about this whole story is someone pointed out that there are more fake pretend websites in Grand Theft Auto 5 than there are in actual North Korea. In the actual game GTA 5, you can go to computer terminals in your phone and whatever. I guess I've never played it, so I'm talking like I have, and surf the web in that world. And there are 83 listed websites that you can actually visit throughout that game.
Yeah, no, just little things to make a game feel more interesting, and
They built a whole world, including a World Wide Web for that world, which is bigger than the actual World Wide Web in North Korea.
Right? Yeah, just something to make the world feel complete for GTA is about 4 times, larger than it was to make the world feel complete for North Koreans.
Yeah.
Just shocking. And I'm sure after this happened, I don't know what happened to that to the guy
That admin.
on the admin. He may not be working on that project anymore. I don't know. But yeah, they definitely don't want that happening again. So, hey, Mike, the music means half an hour has already gone by. Can't believe it. And when we come back, everyone, we will continue talking to Mike Cermak, and we are going to talk about how to speed up your internet by bonding multiple connections. And we're going to get into Google and everything that they showed off at their convention, or that at their keynote yesterday. So stay tuned for more computer and technology news.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering, or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? Not so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they're available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com.
Sorry, gender-neutral connectors just can't be AC/DC. Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the Intermatic Dual-Tech Motion Sensor. It looks a little like a smoke alarm, but it really houses a PIR, that's passive infrared motion sensor, that can cover 1,600 square feet, plus an ultrasonic motion sensor that can cover 1,000 square feet, plus an ambient light sensor, and you have ways to adjust the sensitivity of all three. It's made for wiring into AC power and selectively powering a load like a light or a motor when either or both you choose of the motion sensor's triggers and when the ambient light level you set is appropriate. You can also set between 5 seconds and half an hour how long the load remains powered when it triggers. So bottom line, the Intermatic Dual-Tech Motion Sensor can bring automation to any room, battery-free. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Hello, and welcome back to the Computer America Show. Thank you, Marty Winston, for that News Tip Bulletin review. And thank you, everyone, for joining us once again as we continue on here with the Computer America Show. We have Mike Cermak, owner and operator of TechGuide.org, continuing on with us as we are doing, some tech news. And, moving away from tech news into something that you may actually be able to apply to your house. And he's going to explain how to do it because I'll be honest, went a little over my head. So hopefully you can break it down into nice, tiny little words. And by the way, this link is available in the show notes. So if you want to try this yourself at home, the world's greatest repository of knowledge and learning. It's found right there on YouTube. So yeah. Mike, you're still muted. So.
Oh.
And yeah, so
I do.
yeah, perfect. So why don't you break down what this what this guy did and how it's going to help possibly people out there listening?
Yeah. So what the goal of this was is, of course, everyone always wants faster internet. You want to be able to download things even faster than you can now, because we're not in South Korea, as you were just discussing in the previous segment. We're in
Right.
the U.S. where we don't have that gigabit connection. We've only got 25 megabit or 50 megabit, or depending on where you live, what you might have available. And so there's several ways to be able to make a connection faster. For a lot of our customers that are businesses or schools that have dozens or hundreds of computers connecting, even if you have a 50 megabit connection, that can start to get swamped pretty quickly. And so there's ways to try and balance that. We have load balancers we put on that try to reduce or try to quality of service is what they call it, QoS, try to give priority to things like teleconferencing and VoIP and things like that that are critical, and put lower priority on downloading updates that are then going to disable your printer. So see how I wrapped that all up into,
Very nice.
and so that's one way to handle it. And we've used some tools. One is called Untangle, that we've used a lot, that will allow you to have multiple internet connections. So you pay for multiple DSL or cable or whatever kind of connections, and it'll split the traffic across multiple connections, so that it seems to speed things up. But what it's really doing is that if I'm downloading a big file and Ben's downloading a big file, it'll put one of us on one connection and one of us on the other connection, but it really doesn't allow you to merge the two connections into one. If I'm downloading a file and I'm the only one on the network, I can still only use one of those connections.
Right.
That's you
So
can't get
no matter
bits from
what,
those.
right. So no matter what, if you have 100 megabits per second connection on both, like just because you have untangled in two, you're not going to get 200 megabits. It's just
Right.
going to be in one.
Right, exactly. So any one computer can only be on one connection. You're not really able to download a big file, for example, from one connection, or upload for that matter. Also, if you're,
How many situations is this really going to help? Because I was always under the impression that no matter how fast, well, you could have 1 gig a second, you could have 100 megabits, 50, 20. Like I know this is true for certain video games and certain servers. I think Apple does it as well. You can only download a maximum, and it's changing all the time, but it used to be 6 megabits per second, like capped for a lot of companies. How many situations are people really using their maximum
Right.
internet?
It would be very specific. And the biggest thing I could think of is people who need a higher upload. Because as you know, usually your speeds, people talk about the download, how quickly I can download something from the internet, how quickly I can stream something from the internet. But the flip side of that is how quickly you can send something up to the internet. If you're a content developer, if you're like Ben and creating a radio show, or if you're creating videos and you need to upload them, a lot of people, that's the cap. If you're a photographer and have 1,000 photos you need to upload, that may take an hour, and it may only take 10 minutes to download them, because
Right.
usually your upload speed is much slower than your download speed. And so that's the biggest reason I could think that someone would want to do this, is to be able to connect those. Certainly, you're right. But the other side of it is, it depends on where you are. If you live in a rural area where you're far from your local phone exchange, the fastest internet connection you can get may be 10 megabit. So
Right.
being able to go to 20 megabit may be huge. I mean, I have a customer who is not that rural, but the fastest connection they have available there is 5 megabit. And they have 12 computers on it, and 5 megabit is not fast for 12 computers.
No, absolutely.
So they could potentially get what this would allow them to do. This other technology we're talking about is called bonding the connections together. And there's a couple companies that do it. One that is in the YouTube video that I'm sure you'll post somewhere is called ITEL. And basically what it allows you to do is, you have a little device that looks like a router that your computer connects into. And then on the other side of it, your 2 or 3 or 4 internet connections connect into it. And they magically merge them, bond them into one connection. And so then if you have, for example, if you have 2 10 megabit internet connections, then all of a sudden you have 1 20 megabit connection. And what's kind of interesting about this is that, unlike Untangle and Cisco and some of the other options that are out there for big networks, that it allows one connection to go on one computer to go out on one connection and vice versa, this actually merges them into one connection, which is something that has previously not been possible to do. So you actually can download at that combined rate or upload at that combined rate. It's actually splitting the packets, and sending them across on the two connections to ITEL or whatever company you use to bond your connections, and then putting them back together on their end. So to whatever computer you're connecting to, it appears as though you're connecting from the bonded connection provider, and they see their IP address, not yours.
Yeah, that seems like a really like it seems like whatever you're plugging into, like it's not just buying another router. Like they have some really really intelligent software within whatever they're selling that is able to kind of take it all apart, split it between two, and then put it back together really quick.
Right.
Yeah.
Without adding latency because if you're talking about gaming, I mean, then that's huge. The two parts of your internet connection are the speed, the bandwidth, how quickly, how much stuff you can move. If you can move 10 megabits a second, and then the other side of it, as you know, especially if you're a gamer, is latency, which is if there's any jitter or delay in that connection. That if you're in a shooter game and you have a 50 millisecond connection drop or a 100 millisecond connection drop, that can be a major issue.
Yeah,
so
no.
that's the fascinating thing with this, is that they've actually been able to do what most tech people will tell you can't do, is actually combine the connections and use them both simultaneously for one request.
First time that, and to be fair, first time I'm even hearing of this kind of technology. Sounds very very interesting. Do you know if you have to have kind of similar internet connections, or let's say one provider I get 100, perfect, and for my other provider they only do 25, but I could really use the the combined upload, which is 5 on both. Like, do you know if it has to be comparable both sides?
Yeah.
Or?
From what I've heard, it should be relatively close. They said that and of course there's a little bit of overhead for managing the connection as well. And I was told that if you have a 5 megabit and a 25 megabit as an example, you might as well not even have the 5. That you're not really gaining that much from it.
Right.
What you would be gaining from that is some redundancy for a failover, so that if one of your connections were to drop, you're still connected on the other one, which is kind of a nice thing for a lot of companies and organizations as well.
Very, very interesting. And the only reason I say this is because the gears are turning in my mind, because I think I want this, but I know that the only decent internet connection in my area is 100, and everyone else is like 20 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So potentially you could get, if 100 is pretty huge in my area, that's almost unheard of. But if you were, potentially if you were in an area where you could only get 20 megabit, then you could bundle 3 or 4 of these together and get 60 or 80 megabit.
That's true.
Which would be pretty cool. But of course, it comes at a cost. This bonding comes at a cost. You have to buy the equipment to be able to put in, first of all, the router, which is around $300 or $400, depending on how big of one you get. And then you have a service charge every month, which varies depending on how many connections you have and how big of, how much bandwidth those are combined. And that can vary. It looks like most cases that's going to be between $50 and $100 a month, depending on the size of your bandwidth. It's not, it's not super expensive. It's not prohibitively expensive, especially for a business or organization or a professional who needs to upload a lot of information. That could be well worth it. But then you also have to consider, you also have the cost of those internet connections. So instead of paying for one connection, you're going to be paying for 2 or 3 or 4.
Absolutely.
So it adds up. But it's something that wasn't possible before.
It adds up. But I mean, just thinking personally, no matter how fast my download gets, it's great that I have 100, but I mean, at the same time, I have 5. I had 5 megabits when I had 5 megabits download, and then it's just, it keeps going up and up and up. But I only have 5 upload, and that's keeping me from doing a lot of things. So, hopefully, if something like ITEL would be able to combine that to 10, I mean, that's more than I can get with any single carrier. So
right. Yep. And it's for cases like that, I think, is going to be the main player for it, because you're absolutely right. In most cases, people don't need to download much faster than what they do now.
Yeah, it's like I think anything over 50, 100, 1 gig, like anything over that, the only reason to get that high, again, most servers won't let you pull down that much. You're kind of protecting yourself from someone else pulling 6 megabits, 7, 10 megabits, and then you're not going to be able to crawl. You have plenty of room for you. So, but yeah, no, it's very, very interesting. ITEL, I think I'm going to invite them on the show. I have them here bookmarked.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to hear that. I'll have to make sure I tune in.
I will let you know when they're on the show, and of course, I'll let everyone else know when ITEL is going to be on the show, because and again, like you said, ITEL is not the only player in the field, but definitely a place to start to hear about bonded internet. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Very
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing for me because, like I said, it wasn't that long ago where you would ask anyone about this and they would just tell you that that's not possible. You can't do that.
Oh, no, you asked me before the show, and I would have said no. You can get multiple, and you can connect to multiple, but you have to switch over from one to the other. But to combine, that's a new one, and I like it. All right, and so going from interesting to just as or no. Also, I don't think just as, because I don't know what you guys like, but hopefully Google is hoping you like expensive phones and virtual reality, because that's what they showed off yesterday. I don't know what they called the whole. Was like dream sequence or something. The whole keynote where they showed off the Pixel and a new VR headset. Yeah, did you get a chance to look at that, Mike?
Yeah, I have. It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it's interesting. I was a little disappointed by the Pixel, to be perfectly honest. I am a huge fan of Google Android, and I'm a huge fan of Nexus. I have had more Nexus than I can remember. I've got my Nexus right here, and I've been very happy with them in general. The Pixel is kind of the next generation of Nexus. Instead of using the term Nexus now, they're now using the term Pixel. And Cameron.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so that's their next generation of genuine Google. And the interesting part on this is, in the past, they've always had different parts of the hardware that was actually branded by other manufacturers, like Motorola or HTC. This one here is a Motorola. What's interesting now is they're trying to brand themselves as a hardware manufacturer, although much of it is being outsourced, the same as it is for Apple. And it's actually going to be called, made by Google. That's their big branding thing now.
Yeah, no, it's maybe and yes, I just saw the dad look there and I got scared. But no, yeah, it's video portion of the show. It's a great feature. But no, it's and also this whole Pixel thing. We've seen the Pixel name before applied to their Chromebooks, and of course Chromebooks, I think many people know them almost exclusively for their 150 to 250 kind of price point cheap laptop, not cheap as in cheaply made, just cheap as in
inexpensive
and affordable. And Pixel was, I think that's the first time I heard it from Google, that was their premium line. Like that was supposed to be the MacBook Air computer. They charged like $1,300 base for a Chromebook Pixel. It didn't work out too well for them, but now we see the Pixel pop up once again, and it's a phone that I think a lot of people associate Android with the cheaper alternative to Apple, unless of course you go with Samsung, and then it's comparable to Apple. And here comes Google once again, slap on the Pixel, and it is the same price as an iPhone. And I think that's what caught a lot of people, was that Google was coming out with a self-branded, self-promoted phone, and the price point is right up there with everyone else. Like it's not a better value. It's it might be hardware-wise, but I mean the price point is still $700 base. It can go up to like $850 for all the bells and whistles. I mean, it's expensive for a phone.
Yeah, it is for sure, and it's not way out of line from what some other high-end phones are when you look at the higher-end iPhones and so on. But it is certainly meant to be their leading top-of-the-line phone. And I don't know if you saw the commercial they have for it, about the all-new commercial, where it goes through and shows the different features of it that are all new, and that it's as we should mention as well about the VR stuff it has in it, and that it provides unlimited storage for all of your photos at full resolution, and a lot of other things. But one thing that actually made me laugh out loud on it was when they pointed out that it has a 3.5 millimeter headset jack on it, and it said not so new.
yeah, gotta take a pot shot at Apple.
I was like, that was a little bit of a cheap shot. I mean, I get it, but
it's
that actually made me laugh out loud when they showed that.
Yeah, the 3.5. There are a few things less polarizing than the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack lately in smartphones. So I guess it's good to see that. But No, and I did like the whole, storing completely in the cloud. Again, if you're in the Google ecosystem, this is going to be, very, very simple for you to jump in as well, because, I think they said that they store everything in like Google Pics and Google Drive and things like that, right?
Right.
Right. So yeah, you're of course sharing it with all that. Although they said unlimited, unlimited never means unlimited, so don't test that. But I mean, for the most part, you don't have to worry about storage on your phone when it comes to pictures or videos. I definitely like that. And of course, connected to the cloud, you have to be, but it's a cell phone. You're always going to have that internet connection. And then like you said, some VR aspects. Now they have this thing called Daydream View. And Daydream View is their new it's their new VR thing. It looks like you strap the phone in. Anyone can go out and look up Daydream View and you can see it. And of course, the main difference I think Google has, with this is that yes, it's a headset and it goes over your eyes like a viewfinder, but it's soft. I guess is one thing that they really promoted, and it works with any of these phones that they just announced. Where for $80, for the headset, you can get virtual reality, and that's hey, that's a buzzword.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I don't know how much it's going to catch on, to be honest. Maybe I'm just one of those naysayers, but it doesn't do a whole lot for me yet. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. And it says this is the first phone that was developed with virtual reality in mind. It's got the video processing and everything built with that, as a primary use for it.
Right.
So it should be, presumably very good at it. The other side that's going to be interesting to see is just how much does it kill the battery to be able to run those sort of things as well. And from the look of the headset, I'm not sure how well you can sneak a power plug into it while you're playing. So we'll have to see how that works.
It's more comparable to a Samsung Gear VR, where you just slap it in, and there's no battery backup, there's no charging station. It's just charge it to full, and hopefully
Play as long as it'll last.
yeah, and hopefully by the time 3 hours are up, either you're sick and you're on the ground, or you're done with your VR experience, because it's not going to last much longer than 3 or 4 hours for sure.
I would say you're probably right. It says that the phone under normal use, not VR use, but under normal use, the phone's supposed to get 7 hours of battery life, and it has a quick charge option, which some other phones have had as well, where it can actually get to that 7 hours in 15 minutes. Which is kind of interesting.
No, it's interesting. It just makes you wonder. I mean, usually there's a trade-off, and
Yes.
with other with other products, where it's a quick charge and you get like 80% of your power, but then if you charge it for the full 2 hours, then you get your full 100%. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
Well, and it may be that case. The description I read said it went the whole way, but that could be incorrect. We don't have these things in our hand yet to test, and some of this is just interpretation of what Google's given us.
Yeah.
So you may be right. I would suspect, with what I know about lithium-ion batteries, that you are right. It probably is up to 80% or something like that.
It's not clever software. It's not clever programming. I mean, batteries are just physics, and either you have slow charging time, but slow power release, where they will last longer, or you have quick charging time and a quick release, because that's just how batteries work.
Right.
And it's one or the other, but I mean there are ways of getting around that. Like you mix your batteries and you get that quick charge option, yada yada. Google, I think, for the most part, with that phone, with Pixel and the Pixel Plus, because of course you have to have the 5.5-inch form factor. That's all the rage lately. Looking hardware-wise, processor, RAM, pixel count, all that kind of thing, very, very comparable to high-end Samsung and Apple phones. So, you can see where they're aiming for with this phone. Not a lot of surprise. Of course, the price is right up there with it. It's just, the question kind of begs is, are people really asking for another competitor to the high-end phone market? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, I think that it's good that I think it's good that they're doing this. I like that. I've always loved the Nexus devices. I was excited to hear about the Pixel. One thing that I was pretty disappointed about with the Pixel is that there's no waterproof on it. That's kind of something that's almost standard these days. I mean, the new iPhones have it. A lot of other Android devices already have it. It was kind of a surprise to me that it didn't have that.
I did not hear about it, and I did not look exclusively for it, so I was kind of reserving myself from saying it had it or not. But you say it's standard, standard in the latest phones. So
Yeah, certainly.
I
But
mean,
this is supposed to be a top of the line, leading edge. The
but I mean, the one thing that the other phone companies had going for them was that this is the iPhone 7. This is like their 15th iPhone. If you include like the I's and what have you and the S's. Samsung Gear VR, or so sorry, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, whatever. Like they're on iteration 7, 8. Apple's on 15. This is other than the Nexuses, which I know they kind of gutted to make this. This is their first new Pixel phone. So maybe it wasn't that big of a deal 6 months ago when it was in development, or a year ago when it was in development. But now that everyone else has waterproof, or at least water resistance, it's a bigger deal now because the market shifted since development to actual product.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And the other thing it does have is it's got the fingerprint reader on the back, which again is something that the Apples have, and it's in a lot of ways it almost feels like a little bit of catch up. And overall I just wasn't overly impressed. I expected more. I expected to be blown away.
I feel like if they release this phone with these specs and that screen, and they and actually I think they did make a big deal about the camera. Like this was supposed to be the
That's
fast
correct.
capture rate and a really high quality camera. Like
That's right.
it's like the highest quality camera in a smartphone, right?
Yep, it's the top rated camera in a smartphone ever. It got an 89 on this mobile score, which is the highest any camera's gotten. 12.3 megapixel, but of course we know megapixel isn't everything.
Right.
And it is cool that you can store and download and back up unlimited photos that are taken on this device at full resolution. That's kind of a first as well. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things about it, but I just wasn't blown away. It's kind of what you would expect.
Right. Yeah.
And a little bit less than you'd expect in a sense, as far as the waterproofing goes.
I just feel like whenever a company as big as Google, as big as Amazon, as big as any of these large tech companies, whenever they enter kind of a new space, and I keep saying they enter it, I know that they have the Nexus.
Yeah, I think you're being too generous giving them calling this their first version of it, because it really is just a newer version of the Nexus.
Well, it's the first time where like they have full control over everything. Like they're not trying to brand it out. They're not trying to do.
That's what they say, but I mean, how much control do you suppose they had on the previous Nexus devices?
I have no idea, but no, and I know I was about to sound like I'm trying about to defend them. No, I'm actually about to hit them. Google, like whenever someone as big as Google or as big as any of these other companies tries to enter a market with a new product, and the Pixel, they don't have the Nexus Pixel. It's a completely new line in Google's mind. It's supposed to be disruptive. It's supposed to be, wow, look at this new guy, look at this new guy on the block. And instead it's, oh, okay, it's what we already have, but with Google. Interesting. Like there wasn't that splash that I think that they probably should have done if they're trying to launch a new line.
Yeah, and honestly, I think they need. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's been a disappointing year for phones, I think. I think the iPhone was a disappointment in a lot of ways. I mean, not just because of the jack, but it's I don't know. I'm just disappointed.
There's not a lot of innovations in phones, but I was actually talking to someone else this morning who said this, that maybe to tech guys it seems like, wow, phones are really in a slump, sucks to be a phone guy. But to a lot of people out there, to a lot of users, it's like a toaster. It's an appliance. It's something that
it does what it needs to do.
Right. And either it's a bigger either it's a bigger screen, or it doesn't matter.
And the other question is, have we hit a plateau on it? Are we just going to see much slower acceleration? Like, how much better can they get at this point?
Yeah, these things are fully functioning computers in our hands, and of course, at some point, you're just limited by the form factor. And
90 seconds.
The minute you say that something has hit its peak, the minute you say something can never get better, is the moment that you're wrong.
But I hope so. I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely looking forward to it. Speaking of looking forward, Mike, what do you have going on over in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to techguy.org, or you can go to Computer America, and where is it, under links or something, Ben?
Friends of the show, I believe.
There you go. If you go in there through there, or go to techguy.org, you'll find Tech Support Guy. That's a website I have run for
60
many
seconds.
years. And you can get free tech support there. Go there, post your question. Volunteers will try and help you out, and there's no cost. Paid for through advertisers and donations.
And I will say this personally, I have taken my tech questions there, and a lot of guys, and I think it's just the users there. You hang around there for a couple days, and you start seeing the same questions, and it gets pretty easy to answer them. So if you have any problems, definitely head over there. They've seen it before; they can help you. I have no doubt. So, Mike, thank you for joining us once again here on Computer America. I will send Craig his best. I know that he is anxious to talk to you. You were always one of his favorites. Don't tell that to any of the others, but you were his favorite. And I don't tell the others the same thing, maybe. But no, and yeah, we're looking forward to having you back on next month, which again will be the first Wednesday of that month.
10 seconds.
And yeah, with that being said, everyone else, thank you for tuning into Computer America. It's been a lot of fun. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Take care.
And that's
Thank you
ended.
for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
There we go. And that's ended. So, and everyone else watching on the video portion, thank you for watching the video portion. I know it's been a little lackluster. I don't have all my cool effects, kind of going on. We're hoping to get that up and running here shortly. As soon as I figure, and Mike, I don't know if you've ever done audio stuff, but I was trying to set up the show. Currently, I'm on a Mac, and I don't know what a Mac does, but I tried to get the same setup on my Windows PC. Would not work altogether. Like, I got to the point where the network could hear, Google Hangouts, but Google Hangouts could not hear network, and it was just, it was a headache. So, anyways, I'm trying to work on the audio side of it. Very, very difficult. But once that happens, the video portion will be back, and we'll be back in full swing. So, until then, at least, thank you for joining the video portion. And Mike, I want to thank you once again for doing this.
I've got a scheduling question for you if you've got a second.
Yeah, sure. Just 1 second. So let me just end this. Everyone, see you tomorrow. Bye.